What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the Between the Tackles live NFL kickoff show. Folks, football is back, baby. How long have we been waiting for this? Well, about 7 months for some real football. And we got a great matchup tonight between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. We'll be on talking with you through that throughout the game tonight. But in typical fashion, we have to wait a little bit longer. The game is now delayed until 8:40 due to inclement weather, which means I now have to sit through and watch them raise their back-to-back banner, which really sucks. But I'm here, as always. I'm here with my boy Hogan. Hogan, how you doing, man? We're back. We're ready to do this.
That's right. NFL season is kicking off. Two teams. Well, one that I despise, one that I'm like meh about. Lots of fantasy implications for me. But yeah, no, I'm excited that it's finally actually here. We're through the preseason crapola, and we're ready to rock, man. I can't wait. Let's go. I'm just so happy it's finally here. It's like Christmas.
Absolutely. We got one special guest on with us right now, and that is Mr. Brando Puma, my former co-host on Pro Football Radio and my buddy from college. Thanks for joining us tonight. How you doing, man? You ready for some football?
Hell yeah. I am so stoked to be on the show with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Been rocking with you guys for a bit and, sharing everything I can when you put new episodes out. So I'm excited to be on here. And I got to say, like, the music that you had for like the stream's about to go, like, I was bopping to that. Like that's pretty good. So whoever was on the ones and twos with that did a fantastic job. But no, I'm with you. I already said my goodbyes to my wife and my family. I'm like, okay, like, this is my busy season now. We got college football. We got the pros. I'm kicking it with you two guys. I'm excited. Let's go. Let's light this candle.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We have our other guest ready to go here, Mr. Manish Mehta, friend of the pod. Welcome in. How you doing, man?
I'm good. What's up? How are you?
You ready for some football?
I am. Unlike Brandon, I can't say bye to my wife since she's going to give birth in like 2 months. So I got to stick around for the season.
That's understandable to say the least. Yeah, that would be kind of problematic if you were to say goodbye. But yeah, no, it's good to have you back, buddy. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm excited. You guys ready for this? Is it a delayed start?
Yeah. 8:40 kickoff due to inclement weather.
Oh, well, that's great. That was I may or may not have been getting in my last dozen parlays on BetMGM.
Nice.
May or may not. I can't confirm or deny it.
One of us.
That's right.
Well, I for one, I was hoping, I don't know if we're going to see the show yet. I'm assuming they haven't done the whole ceremony thing yet. I really didn't want to see any of that if they're going to show it. And unfortunately, now I'm not going to have a choice. And, I'm directing my haterade tonight towards the Kansas City Chiefs. That's where it's going right now. It's going to go elsewhere later. If you had any idea about Brandon and I's history doing podcasts together, you can kind of figure where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I can guess. It should be a good game. I mean, I think a lot of people forgot how good of a game the AFC Championship game was, but like 8-9 months ago. And that was a game that, honestly, I don't know if you guys remember some of the particulars, but if Zay Flowers made a big mistake near the goal line, that game could have turned right then and there. I know that Lamar said at some point this week that if he felt, physically better with his legs, that they probably would have won that game. So, yeah, and I know there's a lot of hype around the Chiefs again, and rightfully so. But a year ago at this time, they lost at home in the season opener as well. So I'm not counting out the Ravens. I mean, I think the Chiefs will pull this out, but I think it's a fourth quarter game without a doubt in my mind.
Got any thoughts, Brandon? I want to get your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with Manish. I mean, betting wise, I'm on the Kansas City Chiefs side. I'm laying the 3 points. I think it's going to be a close game, and if it ends on a field goal, like we push, it's not a loss, so I'll take it. But think it's going to be a lot of back and forth. I really want to see how this Ravens defense is going to look without McDonald there anymore, because he's now head coach out in Seattle. So what's this new guy going to do? The Ravens have a somewhat rebuilt offensive line. So what is Chris Jones going to do in that backfield? And, Derrick Henry's there, but me personally, I feel like Derrick Henry's best years are clearly behind him at this point. Like, he's still going to be a focal point in this running game, but I'm excited to see what's going on, but I'm laying it with the Chiefs here.
Go Ravens.
Here we go.
I hate both of these teams. Obviously, it's hard for me to not say that as a Patriots fan. I hate both of these teams. I love the way Lamar Jackson plays, and I hated him when he was first in the league, but I love how he's kind of evolved a little bit as a passer. And, I selfishly hoping Mark Andrews goes into the end zone tonight because he's my fantasy tight end. So I'm really hoping I can get some fantasy points out of him tonight. And, Derrick Henry, like you said, it's kind of the same thing. I'll echo that it does seem like his best years definitely are behind him, but you never know. You never know what he can do. I mean, he sat for so long behind DeMarco Murray early in his career, which is why he's been so effective as he's gotten older. The miles didn't add up on him, as much as some of these guys do early on when they enter the league. So, Hogan.
Oh, I was going to say, to piggyback off of that a little bit, is Harbaugh. You got to remember he's a running game type of guy. They brought in the Mark Ingrams, and they brought in, what was it? They had like the Heisman field at one point where it was Lamar, Ingram, and then what's his name, RG knee, as I call him, because his knee imploded. But like that's what they had, that triple headed backfield, the Heisman field, where everybody knew on the planet they were going to run the ball. They did the triple option craziness and stuff. So if there's one guy that can really capitalize on the run game, it's going to be Harbaugh with this Ravens team, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see what they do if they go with an option route with Lamar and Derrick Henry coming out of the backfield like that. Because I mean, you got to think about that's thunder and lightning right there. Lamar's going to run right past you and you're not expecting it. And then Derrick Henry's going to stiff arm you into oblivion, as Josh Norman knows all too well from the Tennessee days. But I like the Ravens to, hopefully give them a really good fight in this game. Like Manish, you kind of alluded to with the whole AFC Championship game, the Chiefs didn't really do anything crazy to win that game back when they won that AFC Championship game. It was the Ravens that kind of just gave it away with the mistakes. Like obviously you touched on with Zay Flowers fumbling into the end zone the way he did. But then on top of that too, where I'm talking about the Ravens and their running capabilities, they didn't run the damn football in the second half of that game, where it was a 7-point game. Like, what are you doing? Like, capitalize on what works well for you and take advantage of that. And especially where the Chiefs, they get after you with, like you talked about, with Chris Jones getting in the backfield and pressure on the quarterback and whatnot. Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball and do what you do best. It's not a hard concept. And I'm gonna preach that till the cows come home, because my fatties, my offensive linemen, I need them to do what they got to do best.
It's funny you said that, because we just got done on doing a crossover show with Running in the Jungle, which is a Bengals podcast. Talking about the Patriots Bengals matchup. I want to shout them out over there at Running in the Jungle. That we had a blast talking football with them.
Yeah.
For about an hour. It went a little bit longer. It was fantastic conversation, but it was a great theme where we're just talking about run the damn ball. Like, that's this guy right here on Sunday for the Patriots. Let's go.
Well, you can't fall behind 2 touchdowns in the first 10 minutes in order for you to establish the run. I thought Hogan and Brandon, you had touched on it earlier briefly, but running the ball obviously is imperative for this Ravens team. And what Todd Monken did last year was peculiar, to say the least. But the Ravens are missing 2 of their starters from last year. They're actually on the Jets now with Simpson and Moses. So I'm curious to see what that offensive line looks like. And I'm on board with what all of you guys said about Derrick Henry and how much does he have left in the tank. But I honestly thought he was toast 2 seasons ago, and especially last year. It surprised me that he was as effective as he was. Obviously not the dominant player that he had been for the past 5 or so years, but every time, he's the type of guy where every time I think he's toast, he's got a little bit left in the tank. But I'm really curious to see what the offensive line looks like, because everyone assumes when they think of the Ravens, they can run the ball, they play good defense, but it's not exactly the same along the offensive line. And, as I think Brandon mentioned earlier, no Patrick Queen. So there's a big hole, in the middle there. So yeah, I don't know how it plays out, but I think when you have Lamar Jackson, as unconventional as he is, and Berg, I'm with you. I really wasn't a big fan coming out, him coming out of college, but he is successful, even if it's an atypical way. So I would be surprised if he didn't, make some significant plays tonight with his legs.
Absolutely. I don't know. I did just show Taylor Swift on the screen.
I was like, what's the eye roll
You
for?
counting? Wait,
It's either T Swift or
Yeah.
they showed the Mahomes family. It's one of the two.
I got to keep a running tally. What's the over under?
Oh God, it's got to be 100 at least. If it's NBC, yeah, it is NBC. It's got to be 100 for sure.
Oh, no doubt.
Now, I have to tell you that my wife is like, a Swiftie to, unhealthy levels, I think. But she watches every Chiefs game, and she knows more about Travis Kelce and the Chiefs than I do, frankly, which is strange, but true. So she's done a lot for the league, but I think there's like a point of oversaturation, and I'm a fan of Taylor Swift, and I hope that she and Kelce have a long and prosperous relationship. But I'm not sure I can handle another season of all Taylor all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where like my WWE fandom comes in a little bit. All last season, I thought that was all like a work. It was like, okay, Goodell got with like her PR people. Is like, listen, we need to get the female viewership up. Let's get the Swifties in. Release the hounds, and here it comes. And then I didn't think it was an accident. You started seeing Taylor Swift, then you started seeing commercials for like her Eras tour being put in the movie theaters. I'm just saying. But I thought it was all like a WWE work from the get-go. So hey, hopefully that they do whatever, happy long relationship. But to me, skeptical.
I mean, the Kelce's got $100 million deal for their podcast, and I can't imagine it would have been anything close to that if Travis was not in a relationship with Taylor Swift.
100%.
For sure.
Maybe we should just call her up.
Ooh, we got a little shout out there for Ace.
What's up, Ace? Thanks for checking in with us. Oh, man. So, obviously, we got the Chiefs and the Ravens tonight. I want to do a little bit of talk about the divisions that they're in. And we'll start with the defending champs in the Kansas City Chiefs. Brandon, how do you feel about the Chiefs getting dethroned as the winner of their division this year?
Barring a meteor hitting Arrowhead Stadium or some catastrophic injury, I think they're going to win that division again. I mean, Bo Nix looked good, at times in the preseason with the Broncos. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's now, with the Chargers. But to me, like, until I see it, the Chargers are going to Charger, in my opinion. And I'm all for the Raiders, but I can't get behind Aiden O'Connell and everything over there. So to me, it's the Chiefs. I don't even know what their odds are to win the division, but whatever it is, it's probably too short in my opinion. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs winning it by a landslide here.
Hogan?
Yeah, I'm on the same path a little bit. I mean, it's hard to knock off the two-time defending champs at this point, and in that division, there's been a little bit more competition in the past than I would say currently, where the Raiders they're coming off of Antonio Pierce getting hired halfway. Well, he was interim halfway through the year last year, and that was his first full year. And he did some nice things there. I just don't think that team is really built to fully compete with Kansas City right now. Because as long as they got Mahomes, you need a guy that can duel with him. And Brandon, like you talked about, Aiden O'Connell, and who do they got? They don't got Jimmy anymore. Who's their backup there? Oh, Minshew.
Started,
He's a starter.
As much as I love Minshew,
yeah.
It's not going to happen. He's not going to beat Patrick Mahomes. The Chargers, I like, the Harbaughs are an interesting case, right? Because the big thing that I always go back to with Jim is the success he had with the 49ers when he took over. They actually went to the NFC Championship like every year he was there, except for like 1 year. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like, he took a team that was kind of a laughing stock when I believe he took over after Mike Singletary might have been the coach. Actually, I might be dating myself a little bit here. I'm not sure. But
I think it was
either way,
Singletary.
was it Singletary? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was the whole thing with Vernon Davis and kicking him off the field and all that, like shenanigans. And it was just like the 49ers were a laughing stock. That's what they were. And then all of a sudden Harbaugh comes in with the same cast of guys, with a few tweaks here and there. And next thing you know, they're going to the NFC Championship against the Seahawks. And there was the whole infamous Crabtree versus Richard Sherman thing. And then they made the Super Bowl against the Ravens. And I think they made the NFC Championship. What did they beat? They lost to the Falcons. Either way, they had immediate success. And that is what the Harbaughs can bring to a franchise. And when it comes to the Chargers, I think the potential is there. Because everybody knows that Herbert is a very, very talented quarterback, and he gets a lot of accolades, obviously, with what he's able to do throwing the ball. It's going to be interesting this year with the cast he has around him now, where there's not a lot of, big names, where he's had the Keenan Allens and, the always injured Williams brothers or whatever it was out there forever. But what they're able to turn that team into, I'm going to keep a close eye on it. And then in terms of Denver right now with Sean Payton and Bo Nix, it's kind of just, I got to see the product on the field before I'm ready to sit there and go, yeah, they're going to give Kansas City a run for their money. So until somebody, puts up, I'm not picking against Kansas City.
Let's hear it, Manish.
Yeah, I mean, I think the AFC South the AFC West is the weakest division in the conference. Barring the NFC South, it's probably the weakest conference in the NFL. So, I'm with you, Hogan. I think the long-term prospects for the Chargers are really good. I'm a big Harbaugh fan. I'm a big Justin Herbert fan. His foot injury in the preseason and camp, kind of cooled me on their playoff chances. I felt pretty good, pretty bullish on them about 2 months ago. So, I think they're a work in progress. Ultimately, I think they're in good hands, and I think they'll be headed in the right direction with Harbaugh. The Broncos are obviously in a rebuilding mode with a rookie quarterback. I have a lot of faith in Sean Payton. I'm not sure I have that same amount of faith in Bo Nix. The Raiders, I think, are probably, rudderless right now because they don't have a long-term answer at quarterback. So, the competition for Kansas City is just not there. What I will say about Kansas City, saying that we're going to win the AFC West isn't, earth-shattering news. It's a matter of whether they can compete with the other, handful of teams in the AFC to get to the Super Bowl. And when you talk about one giant missing piece is their best cornerback, Snead, who they traded to Tennessee. I mean, that guy, to me, was one of the most, if not the most underrated cornerback in the NFL, probably better than some cornerbacks that get a lot of hype. I don't want to name any names, but maybe there's one in the AFC, not on Denver, that gets a lot of hype, who maybe is not as good as L'Jarius Sneed is. So that's something that Spags is going to have to overcome. But the intriguing part of Kansas City is really, if you just go back 2 to 3 years, they finally have a guy, at least on paper, who can stretch the field like Tyreek Hill did. And I'm not saying that Xavier Worthy, the rookie, is going to be Tyreek Hill, but he adds an element that clearly was not there for Patrick Mahomes last year. And when you look at Mahomes statistically last year, even though they did win the Super Bowl, that just speaks to how great he is as a player. Statistically, he wasn't anywhere near where he had been when he had Tyreek Hill. And to have a consistent deep threat, not a guy like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because I think Worthy is like 5 steps above that, but to have a young player who can threaten defenses, 20, 30 yards down the field is going to open up things underneath for a guy like Rashee Rice, who's, a lower average depth per target guy, but a really highly productive guy. And eventually when they get Hollywood Brown back, he's going to add another element as well. So I think this offense is going to be much closer to what we saw 2 to 3 years ago than what we saw last year. And, giving those options to Patrick Mahomes makes the Chiefs that much more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with that as much as I want to. As much
I didn't choose violence today, Burge. I was waiting for you to take the contrarian route with.
That's coming later. That's coming later. Yeah, the Chiefs are going to win the division. Vegas is a team that is clearly, in my eyes, the inferior one out of all 4 of them. The most probably going to finish in the basement. Denver's intriguing because they do still have some talent, especially offensively. If Bo Nix is able to kind of put it together, in his rookie campaign. Still have Cortland Sutton. Javonte Williams is a running back that, I've always, kind of been an underperformer from my fantasy perspective, but he's got the talent to do what he needs to do there. I think this is kind of going to be kind of a real make it. I don't want to say it's this year, but make it or break it with kind of where Justin Herbert is when you think about it, right? Because now he's got the offensive coach, he's got the quarterback guru. You need to see like a step forward. I'm not saying he's got to blossom into the next Patrick Mahomes, be the next elite top quarterback in the league, but does he kind of scream a little bit overrated at the way his seasons have gone?
This is his third head coach, Berg, in his career. He's only been in the league for what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, that plays definitely a part in it. That definitely plays a part in it. I'd say I don't personally think he's overrated, but I want to see him take a step forward because we all know what Brandon Staley was with the Chargers. It was worst head coach in the league, in my opinion. Some of the decisions that he made, big game moments all the time. What was it? A couple years ago, was it the Jacksonville game where they blew this massive lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars?
It was a playoff game.
Yeah, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't it the year before with the whole Vegas.
They could have ended in a tie, and they both go to the playoffs.
He calls the timeout like and then they go with Vegas goes and knocks him out of the playoffs. That was great. But yeah, we all know what he was. He clearly not head coach material, and now he's got a guy who's established. He's coached in the NFL. He's gone to a Super Bowl. Just won a national championship in the college ranks. Let's see something put together here. Let's see. Let's see. I want to see a little bit of a jump for him. And I know he's lost a lot of his weapons, so there's a lot of turnover there. I think Josh Palmer's the number one guy kind of right now there. The rookie Ladd McConkey, who Manish very, very much helped me draft in my rookie draft based on his assessment after one of our recordings. I'm very interested to see how they put it together there. They got the I want to see if maybe J.K. Dobbins, former Raven, healthy now.
Healthy.
If he stays healthy, maybe he can put something together finally.
Oh, they got two of them. They got J.K. and Gus Edwards. So, I mean, that's the thing is, Harbaugh wants to run the ball, and that's a big, to do with Herbert too. I mean, the big thing that you got to think about as well is the situations that Herbert's been put in with that organization too, because you got to look at it in the aspect of if Herbert was drafted anywhere else, would he have the same success that he's had with the Chargers? Or would he have more success somewhere else? Because that's a big thing too, where you look at even his rookie year, that whole tumultuous thing where they had it wasn't Tyrod Taylor was a starter, and then he got like stabbed by the athletic trainer in the lung or something. Yeah. So I mean, that was the whole thing, was Herbert wasn't even really supposed to see the field that year. I think they were trying to go a similar route to have him sit and learn, and he de facto got thrown into the fire, whether they wanted him or not, because of that situation. And it seemed to have helped him a tremendous amount because he set all sorts of like records, like right after he started playing with, like I said, you got your Keenan Allens, the Williams guys and whatnot. So he did it with not like, I would say that Keenan's not bad and Williams wasn't bad for what he brought to the Chargers when he was healthy, but it would be interesting to see if he had like big name guys, like similar to like Manish, you were talking about, like Mahomes had a Tyreek Hill. He has a Travis Kelce. Now they got established guys like Brown when he's healthy, Worthy. I love him because he came from Texas, but I hate that he's with the Chiefs now. But like, he's got those guys that can do that for him with what Mahomes has and brings to the table. Herbert is a very peculiar situation because it's just the coaching that he's gone through, the players that he's gone through. You got to think too, they don't have Austin Eckler, and Eckler was a great receiving back that he had for a long time there. So Herbert's time will come, I believe. It's just they have to put it together, and it might not be this year as much as we want to see it.
Or, maybe Harbaugh has Connor Stallions on retainer, and he could kind of tap in to like the headsets for the Kansas City Chiefs, because we don't do like the bad dancing on the sidelines anymore in college or the pros. But maybe Mr. Special Forces Manifesto guy can figure out a way to tap into the headsets while he's doing like high school coaching, I think, right now.
Ruthless.
I had to, Manish. They kind of set it up with Harbaugh and the national championship, and I had to come down.
I got you.
Actually, big game this weekend. We were talking about that earlier. As Texas is playing Michigan this weekend in the Big House, so hopefully my boys pull that one out.
Hook 'em.
That's right. That's right.
Let's move over to the other side. We were talking about the Chiefs. Let's talk about the Ravens and the AFC North. That's always seems to be a battle in that division where the teams are always kind of right there. Start with you, Manish.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest division in the AFC. I think the Bengals are going to win the division. I think Joe Burrow's he's my preseason MVP pick. They'll beat up on each other. The Browns are a team I think can go deep in the playoffs as long as Deshaun Watson's shoulder holds up. They've got one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the Ravens, like I said, I'm not sure this is your older brother's Ravens. A lot of people are picking them to make the playoffs. You'll go deep, perhaps in the postseason. I'm not saying that they won't make the playoffs. I mean, potentially, there's 3 teams that can make the postseason out of this division, but it's a difficult division. And I look at what the Bengals had last year and how they hung in even without Burrow. Chase missed a little bit of time as well. But as long as Chase, Burrow, Higgins to a lesser extent, and even a guy like Chase Brown, their young running back, along with the veteran Zach Moss that they signed, if those skill positions can stay healthy, I think their defense is going to bounce back. I think they're too good to have the type of year that they did last year. Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinators, terrific, and I was actually really surprised that they underperformed to the level that they did last year on defense. So to me, that's the favorite. I can make a case for Cleveland. I can make a case for the Ravens. I'm not sure I can make a case for the Steelers, even though who knows how long Russell Wilson is going to last. He's got a calf injury. I don't even know if he's going to play week 1, so it could be a Justin Fields production. It's just a very difficult division year in, year out. You see a lot of tight games, very few blowouts, and with a healthy Joe Burrow, you're just going to see that level of competition inside the division ratchet it up that much more. And I'm a huge Joe Burrow believer. I'm a big fan of Joe Burrow's. I think he's frankly the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. And if he is healthy, I think they win the division, and I think they make some noise in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow. I agree with your assessment on him. I think he's the second best quarterback. It's no Josh Allen as the second best quarterback there. So.
I can't say that on this podcast with you guys. Got a Dolphins guy and 2 Patriots guys. So.
You can say it with me. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers him over there. I mean, he's the Buffalo Bill hater.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I despise the Jets more, but I mean Aaron Rodgers is what he is at this point. But that's Josh Allen doesn't do anything for me because they chokes at the end.
I love Josh Allen. Too many turnovers, and I if I needed a game-winning drive, I didn't have Patrick Mahomes. With 2 minutes to go in the game, I'm going with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Hogan, how do you feel? How do you feel about that division? You kind of agree, or where you sit?
I mean, obviously, if Cincinnati's fully healthy and they're able to return to form with what they did a couple of years ago with that Super Bowl run that they had, I like their chances. Do I feel comfortable, ready to crown them division champs yet? I don't know, because it's kind of the Ravens' division to lose because they have the pedigree, they have the coaching. I mean, I do like Zach Taylor a lot. I think he's a really good coach. I would still pick John Harbaugh over him because Harbaugh has the experience and he's done it with multiple different teams with multiple different ways that they've done it, because you got to think about the success he's had long term with Baltimore. The guy's gone from Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson to Ray Lewis to Patrick Queen. He's had a plethora of really good players, but he's also done so many different things with the players that he's had in the term that he's been there. So it's really hard for me to sit there and be like, okay, I'm going to write off the Ravens this year, because they bring it every year that you want to write them off, and they still find a way to nip you at the end. So I gun to my head, I got to go with the Ravens just for now, just to see. I mean, tonight's going to be obviously a great test to see what they look like going against the defending champs. If they get their butts kicked, it's like, okay, well, maybe I was a bad pick. But if they hold tight, or even if they bring it to them and they beat them tonight, I'm going to feel really good about that decision. again, Cincinnati offensively is just a juggernaut. You know what they can bring, especially with that offensive line revamped. I mean, we talked about that on the previous pod that we were on, where Orlando Brown is no pushover. I mean, Trent Brown is what he is. Even if he gets benched, they drafted Mims there in the first round. He's a monster of a dude, 6'8", 340 pounds, coming from Georgia. He knows how to win. So if they keep Joe Burrow upright defensively, other than Trey Hendrickson, I don't know that they have an all-pro defense that can hang with some of the best offenses in the NFL. Looking at the rest of the division, Pittsburgh, I kind of put them at the bottom just because I don't see, regardless if it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, I can't see them, replicating any long-term success with either of those guys right now, because Russell Wilson fell off a mountain the minute he left Seattle. We all know what he did in Denver, and it's just he's on the wrong side of 30 at this point for his playing career. Fields, the jury's still out. He's a running back that plays quarterback. That's the way I look at him. He can't really throw. They talked about putting him as a kick returner for Pete's sake. I mean, come on, like, what are we doing here? That's it. Just Pittsburgh is, unfortunately, if there's any Pittsburgh fans out there, this is probably the year you're not going to go 9-8 or 8-8 for like the first time in like 20 years. So get over it. I'm sorry. And then this is the old curmudgeon in me, but Cleveland is Cleveland, and I'll never not shit on Cleveland, because they are one of the biggest joke franchises. Paying Deshaun Watson what they did, and they're getting exactly what they reap from him, with Joe Flacco having to lead them to the way he did last year. Defensively, obviously, Cleveland's got a good corner with corner. They got a cornerstone with Myles Garrett. He's just one of the best defensive players in the league, bar none. But as a team all around, I don't have a lot of faith in Cleveland to really knock off either the Ravens or Cincinnati at the end of the day. So give me Ravens, Cincinnati nipping at their heels if everybody stays healthy. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, bottom of the barrel.
Wow.
Oh, I go hard. I go hard. You trust me. You'll learn.
Jesus,
You'll learn.
what did Brownie the Elf do to you? Never thought I'd have to come to the defense of the Browns, but I think
all I know is really quickly is that like what solidified my like not hatred, but just like laughability of the Browns was, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago that there was a trade deadline and they were trying to get a trade in and they couldn't fax
the facts.
The facts. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't even remember what player it was for. And it was just, I remember that story broke where the trade was done. They had it ready to go and they couldn't get the facts out. And that's how they lost out on the trade. And I was like, name another organization besides the Browns that would lose a player to a fax machine. You can't do it. So I always have to shit on the Browns. It just will never not happen. Go ahead, defend them all you want. I'm just
let's hear it, Puma.
I'm gonna put on the Brownie the Elf armor here. I mean, this is the toughest division in the entire NFL for sure, in my opinion. I mean, this is a gladiator division, steel lunch pail, hard hat, everything. But I'm gonna go. I gotta lean towards the Browns. I mean, everything else is valid. I mean, I kind of have Pittsburgh finishing in the bottom of the division, in my opinion. It's really just going to come down to Deshaun Watson and that shoulder, like Manish said. If he can put it together and have even like 75% of that, year he had in Houston 2 years before he got traded and all the off-field nonsense that went on, I think that offense is going to be in good hands. And, Nick Chubb's starting the year on the PUP list. So in theory, he'll be back after week 4. If they can get 75% out of him, this defense can carry the team for a bit. I mean, they have one of the best defenses in the league. They have the talent on the offensive side of the football. And I never thought I'd say this, but if Watson goes down, you have the Jameis Winston experience as backup quarterback. And, Joe Flacco did great when his number got called and brought him to the playoffs. But Jameis can throw the ball deep downfield. He can't move like he used to at Florida State, but I think he can scramble enough to move the chains in a pinch. So the backup situation isn't the worst in the league. And, all the points with the Bengals, I mean, they got all the firepower there, but, it's going to come down to Joe Burrow. I was talking to some friends and, other local people out in Ohio. And what I said was, to me, if Burrow's on like Mr. Glass watch for me, right? Like if he gets dinged up again, that's going to be 4 years in a row of, either he's starting the year off missing training camp because of an appendectomy, or he blew his knee out in Washington, which, I mean, that stadium, I swear to God, it has like a curse on it for everything. But, if he can stay healthy, they could win that division, by a mile. But I'm going to go with the Browns just because of the defense. And I never thought I'd say this, the Jameis Winston experience at the backup position.
Well, Stefanski proved he can win with a guy that was on his couch at the beginning of the season. So, you never know. You never know. Maybe the quarterback's not as important to that team to make the playoffs as.
I mean, even like PJ Walker and DTR, like when they had that big upset when San Francisco was the line closed as a double-digit favorite in like monsoon rain. They won outright with PJ Walker, and DTR was serviceable enough for a cup of coffee for his starts because the defense was able to anchor everything. So, yeah, I think Stefanski could figure something out. Worst case, if Jameis has to go back there.
Really, really quickly, I just looked it up because it was bothering me. It was AJ McCarron that they tried to trade for back in 2017. They failed to copy the NFL on an email, and that's why the trade fell through. And you know what the biggest joke part is? I wish the trade had gone through because I'm reading it right here. They were prepared to give up either a second or a third round pick for AJ McCarron.
Oh wow.
So again,
was he with Houston then?
He was with Cincinnati. It would have been an in-division trade.
Oh my God.
And just the fact that they were willing to do that and then they failed to do that, I laugh at you, Browns. I laugh at you.
Trade for the red.
Don't worry, Brownie the elf. I got you. Dog pound.
I'm not as optimistic as you, Brandon. I'm gonna echo kind of where Manish and Hogan are on this. I have pretty much the same standings as Hogan for the AFC North, but I'm flipping the Bengals and the Ravens. I think that the Bengals this might be the year to get back to that place atop the division, and we know what the Ravens are, and Steelers. I'm all set with Mr. Unlimited. All right. I'm so done with him. I'm so done with him. Was he going to say Steelers country? Let's ride. Like
no. It's Steelers country. Let's weld. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That's good.
A great point.
I like that.
But Manish, I do have a question about the Steelers that came in from one of my buddies in my fantasy league. My buddy Russ. He drafted Justin Fields in our dynasty auction as kind of a long shot quarterback. His question for you: when, if at all, do you predict that Fields will actually take over as the starting quarterback for the Steelers?
Well, if he starts on Sunday, which is a possibility, because Russell Wilson, I don't know if he was limited or didn't practice on Mr. Unlimited was limited.
Mr. Limited.
He's dealing with a calf injury. Calf injuries, I mean, we saw that last year in the summertime with Aaron Rodgers. He was dealing with a calf injury, and then he blew out his Achilles. And I think when you get to a certain age, especially when you're playing at that level, you got a calf injury. It's not that long of a line to potential Achilles injury, especially in a contact sport. But it's really up to him. If you look at the schedule, I think that the first half of the Steelers schedule is really, I mean, I don't want to say soft, but I think they can win a decent amount of games. And if, for example, Fields either starts week one or comes in at some point on Sunday and does well, I can't imagine Mike Tomlin would turn the page. I mean, he's a really big fan of Russell Wilson. We know that, given that he got the start over Fields when I think they kind of, they played to a draw in the preseason and camp, but he went with the reliable veteran. So I think if Fields comes in, it's really up to him. I don't know if, there's a definitive answer other than if he plays well. I can't imagine Tomlin giving him a hook just to go back to Russell Wilson. Yeah, I think you kind of, like a running back. If he gets an opportunity, he's riding a hot hand. I can't see him, getting out. Also, because they really need to evaluate Justin Fields. This is his last year of his rookie contract, and they did trade for him, so they gave up trade capital for him. It's an opportunity for them. I'm not saying that they're not going to try to win games. Obviously, they are because they've got that streak under Tomlin, but they really need to evaluate what they have in Fields. So the idea of like jerking him in and out of the lineup to me makes no sense. If he does get an opportunity to play and is playing fairly well and they're winning, I think they'll see what they have and then ultimately make a decision toward the end of the season about whether they want to retain him long term. Because You don't give up trade capital for a 1-year rental in the NFL. That's typically not how it works.
Especially for a backup, right?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. I mean, you're not giving up. You want to, in an ideal world, have a decent sample size, especially at the quarterback position, before determining whether you can lock them up long term. That's why I was a little bit surprised that Fields wasn't the Week 1 starter. I know that Tomlin has an affinity for Russ, and again, he is a veteran. Obviously, in my opinion, a future Hall of Fame quarterback. So there's a little bit more of a comfort level there. But I think it's fair to say that he is on a short leash, and he's certainly not off to a good start when 3 days before the first game of the season, he's dealing with a calf injury. No fault of his own, but the reality is that if he can't move around in the pocket, he's not going to play, and that's going to potentially open the door for Justin Fields to get the job and run with it.
I think you're spot on with that, because I think no matter what happens, I don't think the Steelers are going to be good enough to really be a playoff team.
Yeah.
I have them in the basement of the division. Browns third, Ravens second, Bengals first. I think that your point about them needing to evaluate him in their environment with their talent. I mean, they have the film from where he was with the Bears back, for the first 3 years of his contract. Showed some flashes in that period of time. I remember he was a guy that slipped in the draft. That was the whole Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence draft, and he was
Zach Wilson
for the longest time was the consensus number 2 pick. And then a month leading up to the draft, that Zach Wilson kind of came out of nowhere. We all saw how that worked out for the Jets. Haha. But I wanted the Patriots to trade for Justin Fields and to be a guy to come in here and play and take a guy like Marvin Harrison. I think we probably talked about that on one of our episodes when you were on with us, around the draft time. So if he gets to play, I think I like the Steelers' chances better to be successful, this season, obviously going forward. Russell Wilson is, getting up there in age, not necessarily as mobile as he, was early on in his career. And I think he's cocky. Mr. Unlimited. I got an alter ego, Unlimited. I saw that video come across my page on, I don't know, probably NFL memes or something on Instagram, and I'm like, I forgot about that, and I really wish I didn't see that again. Because now it's stuck in my head.
What I will say about Russ is an interesting guy. I don't know him personally. I've never spoken to him, but it is interesting. He does have, for lack of a better phrase, a bad rap, and maybe some of that stems from some of those veteran guys in Seattle who spoke ill of him after he left. But everything you see publicly, he does things, at least publicly, the right way. So I hate casting aspersions on guys that I don't know, especially when they don't give you a reason to, because publicly, again, he doesn't really cause many waves. Do I think he's cooked? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's cooked. I do know that in this kind of offense, this is an Arthur Smith offense, which is a run-centric offense. I do think he can be productive. And even if you look at last year, even though he didn't set the world on fire, he was kind of productive in Sean Payton's offense. He wasn't exactly what Payton wanted, but he took care of the ball by and large, which was a big step up from the year before under Nate Hackett. So, I mean, do I think that he can still be productive? I do. Do I think you can win, deep into the playoffs with him? Probably not. But, I think that the narrative about Russell Wilson has tilted so far in the other direction where people act like he just can't play, and I don't know if that's actually true. And especially in this particular system, which is not going to ask him to drop back 35 times and throw it. I think he can be productive, to whatever degree that is.
Yeah, that's a good point on the Arthur Smith hire. Because I mean, I couldn't stand Art when he was the head coach of the Falcons. Like, from real life football, fantasy football betting, it was just mildly aggravating watching him try to call a game and just not use Bijan at all. And I don't know what Kyle Pitts did to him in Atlanta. Did he kick his dog? I don't know, but. I mean, if you look at when he was the OC in Tennessee, when they had Derrick Henry and then they had Ryan Tannehill there was a lot of runs, and they dialed up the play action, and they were lethal with that. So as much as Najee Harris can be aggravating from time to time, just seeing him run into a wall, but you have I think was it Jaylen Warren back there as a change of pace running back. Russ has been fantastic off of play action going all the way back to Seattle. And we saw that last year with Courtland Sutton at times. Yeah. I think with, George Pickens and some of the other folks on the wide receivers and even Pat Frymuth, like if they can dial up play action, they will have punchers chances in these games for the season. So maybe he's just a better offensive coordinator than a head coach, but I think that's kind of the silver lining I see from Russ or even Justin Fields for that matter with this offense.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brandon. I agree.
Real quick, Hogan, did you see the illegal formation penalty?
Yeah, I did. I'm having flashbacks to our preseason game that we watched against Washington last week, and I'm already agitated.
So just for some background
into the game.
Yeah,
it's only 2 minutes in.
Chuck's Okafor with the what was it? 3 illegal formation penalties.
It was 4. Okay. I'm pretty sure it was 4.
Onwenu had one of them.
Oh.
Yeah, but they had the illegal formation for lining up too far in the backfield on the left tackle. It's the same referee. It's Sean Hockley. It's the same referee from the game. And he
once
threw the
again.
flag.
The shirt's getting any tighter. Is he showing off the pythons today? He's got to show off like he got an arm workout in.
The worst part was literally he called the 3rd illegal formation on Okafor, whatever his name is, and he literally he started laughing in the middle of the penalty call, going, once again, 70 whatever of the Patriots illegal formation, and I was like ready to throw my TV through the freaking window because I was just like, what is this? Like, I've seen high school offensive line play more like sound than what they're doing right now. It drove me absolutely batshit crazy. And that's why a big part of I'm already planning on the Patriots having the 1st pick overall next year, because this offensive line is not going to sustain any success whatsoever going forward.
That's a good segue. Let's start talking about the AFC East. Let's have some fun.
There we go.
Let's have some fun.
My eye black real quick. Hang on.
we got the resident Bills fan here and Brando Puma right here. All right.
Here we go.
Wearing a Miami hat.
Yeah.
All right. So just a backstory, Manish. I got to explain this to you because before we started doing this podcast here, I did a podcast with Puma over here, and it was around, what was it? 2020. It was COVID. It was during COVID. We started doing it together, and we had so many arguments because this kind of rejuvenated my Buffalo Bills hatred from like when I was younger. So he's Exhibit A right here. He's Exhibit A for it. And he would always go on and on about Josh Allen and rooting for Josh Allen and all this and that. And I'm like, dude, bro, you're a Dolphins fan. How can you root for your rival? How can you root for that? And we had some heated arguments about it too on the episode.
It was a good time. Everyone came out alive. A couple of bruises. Everything was hunky dory though. But no, like I was saying offline, I was the conductor of the Josh Allen Express going back to when he got drafted out of Wyoming. So it's not like I hopped on the bandwagon in 2020 when they made that playoff run. No.
Right.
I've been the conductor going on the Josh Allen Express through Josh Allen town on, hyping this guy up. But I will say, when he does some nonsensical, do you have anything between the ears type of plays, I will be the first one to bury that guy. Like last year, week 1, on the road in the Jets.
That game. Yeah.
Everything happens and he blows that game. And it's like, well, bro, what are you doing? Like their guy went out 4 plays in and you somehow sealed the loss. Great.
He's got a lot of
Real quick,
Brett Favre in him.
I'm pretty sure they just called a second illegal formation penalty on Ronnie Stanley.
Was it offsetting though because of the pass interference?
Yeah, but he got flagged for it again. There must be some emphasis on this year. Some major emphasis.
There is. They said that they're no longer allowing them to get away with the left tackles lining up as far back in the backfield. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Lord. Anyways,
but this isn't even egregious though. I wouldn't this is a ticky tacky call. Like he's pretty much in line with the guard with what I just saw from that angle.
Listen, you guys actually tuned in to watch the players. No. Everybody else in the Western world wants to see the ref show. We're getting it right at the start, baby. Football is back.
The only time I ever rooted for the refs in my entire life was the Tampa Bay Kansas City Super Bowl because I didn't want to see either team win.
Me too.
Yeah, I literally was cheering the refs on in that game. I hated that game.
Oh man. Anyways, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. The AFC East talk. Puma, I want to get your thoughts on the AFC East, as unbiased as you possibly can.
I mean, unbiased, huh?
I'm
So-
captain unbiased, so
I'm gonna go. I mean, call it a homer pick. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins to win the division here. I mean, they have an interesting week 1 matchup with Jacksonville coming to town. Tua's gonna be under pressure from time to time, but he'll have that quick pass game to negate any pass rush. It's just gonna come down to, can Tyreek, can Jalen Waddle, can Tua just stay healthy enough, because they were lights out last year, and then the injuries started racking up. And then after the Black Friday game where Jalen Phillips blew his Achilles out, and then I think Bradley Chubb got hurt either in that game with the ACL, and the game was already well in hand. After that, it kind of fell down, and they cratered on the road in the playoffs in Kansas City. So if they can all stay healthy, I like the secondary some with Kendall Fuller getting into the fold, and Xavier Howard was great, but I kind of look at maybe that was addition by subtraction, because he had a bunch of injury history, and then you can just look at TMZ last year. He kind of had his own off-field issues from time to time in South Beach, so I kind of look at it as addition by subtraction. The defense might rally a bit more, because it seemed like Vic Fangio might have been a hard guy to get along with in that locker room and with that scheme. But I like the Dolphins to win. I got the Bills as second, making a wild card. And then I have, the Jets and God, what am I forgetting here? What am I forgetting? God, the Pats. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I mean, come on, Burge. You're gonna tell me New England ain't gonna be in the cellar?
Oh no, they're going to be picking first overall in the draft. I told you, I'm as unbiased as they come, unless we're talking about the Bills. I'm as unbiased as they come.
Uh-huh.
Now, I love the Dolphins pick to win the division. That's where I'm at, and I still don't feel great about Tua. I don't know how you feel about Tua, but I still don't. I don't know. I can't even explain it. Like I feel like he's gonna get hurt. I feel like he's one hit away again from getting hurt again. And
it's
maybe
fine. He knows how to do judo. We saw those falls and the training on the falls last year.
Maybe we'll
Never
see.
thought I'd be excited to see him kind of roll out of a sack. I mean, here we are.
Maybe we'll see Tua turn the ball over.
I like that. I see what you did there.
I think the big thing with Tua though is that he was serviceable even his rookie year and everything like that. Like he's not going to be the flashiest guy in the world, but like you give him the all talent players that he has now with Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and he's proven that he could potentially be an MVP candidate. So it's. I don't want to sit there and say I disagree with you, but at the same time, like I actually was kind of thinking like if we didn't, I think he was the same year. No, he was the year before Mac, right? Or was he the same year as Mac?
The year before.
It was the year before.
The year before. Like I was kind of in on the Patriots, taking a chance and drafting him, obviously, but Miami had the higher pick at that point. So I don't know. I mean, the injuries obviously were a huge part of that year where he got concussed like 4 or 5 times or whatever it was, crazy. But he's still been a serviceable guy when he's on the field and you give him talent and he's able to make the plays that you need him to do. It's just a matter of like the team has to come together finally. And I think they do have the team this year. I mean, my pick is obviously I think Miami's going to take the division this year because Buffalo took, I think, such a big step back with all the subtractions they had. I mean, you can't go from losing your best 2 receivers with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis to, Curtis Samuel and who's the other one from Green Bay they got? Or was it Valdez-Scantling?
Yeah, they drafted Keon Coleman.
Coleman.
Yeah.
And even then, he's not, I don't think he's the answer, but, losing a guy like Stephon Diggs. Like Diggs is just, he's too good of a receiver to replace that. Josh Allen can only do so much with what he's got up there. But I think a big part of it is if they're able to lean on the run game, where James Cook, I think, is going to have a really good year again, because he wasn't half bad last year, if I remember correctly. Like he kind of broke out a little bit, like especially in the later part of last year where they needed him to. So But defensively, again, Buffalo doesn't scare me anymore the way they used to. They lost Poyer. They lost a bunch of other guys. I think Milano got injured at one point too. Like they have a lot of guys that have talent, but they lost a lot. So I think by that virtue, I like Miami a lot to win the division this year, especially if they stay healthy and they get everybody back that they need to with Phillips and Chubb coming back. And then that secondary with Jalen Ramsey, I mean, he's still one of the most dangerous corners in the league. Like, you can't forget about him roaming the backfield back there. But then offensively, they could score 60 against anybody at any point with all the explosiveness they have. So, and then, yeah, Patriots in the cellar, like you said, Brandon. We've accepted it. I'm okay with it. Give me that first overall pick, which we should have gotten last year. But then we went and won stupid games, which we shouldn't have. And we all know Burgess, we got to win games for no goddamn reason. I'm still going to root for them to beat the Jets, even though it has no impact except, maybe moving down in the draft, which we don't want to do. Yeah, I said it.
We really going to rehash this again? We really going to do this again?
We are going to rehash it again because think about it. If we didn't win one of those stupid games, we picked second overall instead of third.
Probably still take Drake May.
Okay, but the whole point of moving up in the draft is if you don't like who you want to pick there, you have the capital to hold ransom for other teams. There's a reason why the number one pick is such a sought after pick. Do I have to remind you what Chicago did to Carolina? Or do you want to sit there and go, I'm so angry we missed out on beating the Jets again at the end of the season?
Bro.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Bro, do we have to rehash this whole argument again?
I just proved you wrong. So, I mean, there's no rehashing anything.
In the moment, I root for my team to win.
Manish, tell me I'm right. You know
he was
I'm
there.
Right.
He was there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Birch. I agree with Hogan. 100%. Yeah, look, if you have the earlier pick, you have so much more of an advantage because you can acquire additional draft capital if you want to slide down. Whereas you don't if you're stuck at 8 or 9 or whatever it is. But I understand from a fan's point of view. I just know that as a fan, I couldn't care less about a meaningless final game, even though it makes you feel better in the moment. 2 weeks later, when you're gearing up for the draft, you'll be happier if you had the better pick.
I like my instant gratification. I can deal with the pain later. I could deal with the pain later.
Uh-huh.
Benish, how do you feel about the AFC East?
Yeah, I'm going to hop on board with what these guys said. I think the Dolphins are going to win. I think it's going to be a close division. Just let's get it out of the way. That the Patriots aren't going to compete. They'll be in the cellar. The other three teams, frankly, you can make a solid case for Buffalo, Jets, or Miami. I just think Buffalo. I guess we'll start with Buffalo. Losing their top two wide receivers is pretty significant. I mean, I'm a big believer in Dalton Kincaid. I think he'll ultimately be the leader in targets and probably be the number one receiving option. I think Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook, will take a step up. They also drafted Ray Davis, who I think would be like a short yardage guy, a bigger running back. So I do think that, offensively, while it looks like they're taking a significant step back because, Diggs is a perennial Pro Bowler, I think that their offense will be okay because of Josh Allen. The defense to me is a big question mark. I don't really know what they have on the defensive side of the ball, compared to a year ago. So I don't think they'll win the division. I think they'll compete for the division as they did last year. I think they're a borderline playoff team. I think they'll be competing with a team like the Jets for a wild card spot if Rodgers remains healthy. The Jets just have so many injury question marks, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses. Their two tackles, they're on the wrong side of 30, coming off of injury. Tyron Smith is perennially hurt. Morgan Moses had offseason surgery. Their second receiver, Mike Williams, had ACL surgery last year. Even though he's going to play to start the season, who knows what kind of shape he's going to be in. Typically receivers coming off ACLs, it takes them a little while to get going, if not the entire season. So you're essentially looking at a soon-to-be 41-year-old quarterback who hasn't played in a year and a half, throwing to a dynamic young receiver in Garrett Wilson, handing off to a really promising running back in Breece Hall. I think the fantasy football community may be elevating Breece Hall to something that he's not yet. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that he can't be great, but putting him in a class with Christian McCaffrey, I think, is premature. But that being said, Breece Hall is a great weapon to have on your team, and so is Garrett Wilson. But when you have pretty much a new offensive line and two older, injury-prone, or at least guys coming off of injury at the tackle position, and a very old quarterback. I think that that leads to a lot of question marks that you can't definitively say, hey, the Jets are going to be great because Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback and they got Tyron Smith. Yeah, I mean, both those guys are going to Canton. We all know that. But where are they at this stage of their careers? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not the 32, 34, 35, 36, 37-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is an older player who didn't play particularly well in his last year in Green Bay. He was good, not great by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, he only played 4 snaps last year, coming off a pretty significant injury with the Achilles tear. And now, after such a long layoff at such a advanced age, what can you realistically expect out of him? I know if you're a Jet fan, glasses half full, Aaron Rodgers, the name Aaron Rodgers gets you excited. But the reality is, what kind of player are you getting at this stage of his career? The defense, I think, is terrific. Now, they completely botched the Hassan Reddick trade. Why they traded for him, and they traded for a player who's from South Jersey or from Jersey, Philly area. So if the Eagles were Hassan Reddick's hometown team, and Howie Roseman, the GM, was at his wit's end and realized he could not get a long-term deal done with this player, and this player would not play on this deal, and it was too much of a headache, so he traded him. I mean, that should be an immediate red flag. Why would the Eagles trade Hassan Reddick? Even if you look at him statistically last year, first half of the year, terrific, really fell off in the last 6 weeks of the season, much like the rest of the Eagles defense did. He is 29, I believe, so probably off of his prime, going downhill. He's still got, I think, another year or two of good at play left, but it was a headache that the Jets took off the Eagles' hand without having an ironclad agreement in place, and that's just, frankly, that's mismanagement, to be honest with you. So I don't know if he's ever going to show up, what kind of player he's going to be when he shows up. But overall, I think their defense is a top-end defense. I don't think they're the best defense in the league. I mean, I'll take the Browns, the Niners, and other teams, but they're definitely a championship caliber defense. It's just, what are you going to get from the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback, with the tackle questions, with the weapon questions outside of two players? I don't know. There's too many question marks. The Dolphins have an explosive offense, as you guys said. We already know they're like 3 deep at running back with Mostert, Achane, and Jalen Wright, their rookie, who I absolutely love. If he was on a different team, I think he'd be getting a lot of touches. Not to mention Tyreek and Waddle, who came off, frankly, a down year for him. So I think he'll bounce back. And even though Tua isn't Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he needs to be. You've got so many weapons around him. He's good enough to win with. Can you win a Super Bowl with Tua? Absolutely. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback, but I absolutely think with the way that the offense is composed, that this offense can be a top 3, 4, 5 offense at worst, maybe even the top offense in the league. So they're explosive on offense. The questions I have on the defensive end, can they get to the quarterback? They've got key guys coming off of injury. They lost a couple guys, so can they get pressure? So we look at this game on Sunday. Jacksonville, I think, is a 3.5-point dog in Miami. Say what you want about Trevor Lawrence, but the Dolphins are going to need to get pressure on him, because if they don't get pressure on him, I think Jacksonville has the offense to make this a really high-scoring, entertaining game.
Absolutely. I don't know. Hassan Reddick just screams like it's just such a typical Jets move.
I mean, it's embarrassing on multiple fronts. I think there's a lot of people that should be embarrassed by it. I think the most fundamental thing, you don't have to be a lifelong NFL executive or coach to know that in that situation, you needed to have a long-term contract in place before you agreed to the deal. It's basic. It's football 101. It's trading 101. And to go through what both sides have gone through over the last several months, we have the general manager releasing a statement, which is absurd on a million levels. Keep things quiet. You didn't make a deal. If you can save face and trade the player, which I don't know if I've ever heard of a player being traded twice without actually playing for that middle team, then you do it. But it was just mishandled on so many levels, and I think it could have easily been avoided. Now, Jet fans will justify it by saying, well, they've got a lot of young players. Will McDonald, their first-round draft pick, who didn't really play much last year, gives him an opportunity to get more snaps as an edge rusher. Jermaine Johnson, who came along and was a Pro Bowl alternate last year in his second season, could take another jump. They had a couple undrafted edge rushers who played well in preseason, but what does that really mean when the season starts? I think if you're a win now team, an all-in team, as the Jets obviously are, you need to have a player like Hassan Reddick in the fold. And messing around with this to the point where you're 3-4 days out of your first game and this still hasn't been resolved is really it opens the door for people like us to lampoon the organization for a history of questionable decisions, and it really easily could have been avoided. It's head scratching that executives and decision makers get paid millions upon millions of dollars and they can't execute the most basic thing, and that's to get a disgruntled player, get him locked up in a long-term deal before you actually make the commitment to trade for him.
I just can't help but laugh. I love laughing at the Jets. I love laughing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I live out in Connecticut, and I'm listening to the Fan every day, and every day it's like Hassan Reddick watch, and it's like, I mean, come on, like you said, Manish, like this should have been locked up before you even hit send on like the email to Park Ave to put the trade through. Like this is borderline negligence, and the Jets don't want the attention, but like they can't seem to help themselves in the eye of public opinion by doing nonsensical things like this.
Yeah, it's really weird because the dynamics are pretty simple. A team gives a player an opportunity to see what their value is. The player and his agent, or his agent really, not the player, but the agent comes back to the team and says Team A is interested. And so the team that the player belongs to, in this case, the Eagles, say, okay, you go ahead, talk to the Jets, for example. And then at that point, the Jets general manager and the player's agent, basically have a contract negotiation, and the contract is in place because the draft compensation, in this case, a conditional third that could be a second, has already been agreed upon with the two teams. So if you're the Jets in this particular case, and the agent has not agreed to some kind of long-term extension, you can't go by like a loose verbal confirmation, like, oh, don't worry, my guy wants to play for you guys, and we're going to work something out. It's all good. We'll come to camp, and then we'll figure it out. This is a $13 billion. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry where your word isn't good enough. And I'm not saying anyone backed out on their word. I don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations. Each party will put out their spin to reporters. The team will put out their spin to team-friendly reporters. The agent will put out his spin to reporters that he's friendly with. So nobody knows exactly what was said between the two, but that really does not matter. What matters is that there is a firm agreement with firm numbers in place, saying that, yeah, Hassan Reddick's going to show up. Don't worry, we'll figure it out over the course of the summer. That's just not good enough. That's negligent. I mean, that's gross negligence on behalf of the team, and in this particular case, the Jets. And there's a lot of after-the-fact justification that you've seen over the last several weeks with Jet fans saying, "Well, let him rot. We don't need him. He went back on his word." They don't know if he went back on his word. I mean, there's no taped conversation that I'm aware of that got leaked where we know exactly what Hassan and Reddick's agent said and what the Jets general manager said. We have no idea. It's just it's just so silly because it could have been bridged so easily. You try to get a deal done. If Hassan Reddick's agent's saying, "Hey, look, the numbers you're giving us, the deal you're offering us isn't good enough," if you're the Jets, you say, "Okay, thanks, but no thanks," and you move on. But to have this headache, it was so avoidable, and it's such a joke that now you've got both camps entrenched, in their sides, and you've got a fan base that's kind of split. Certain fans are going to be rooting for the jersey regardless. So no matter what ridiculous or ludicrous decision the team makes, they're always going to side with the team over the particular player. They love the player until the player can't produce, and when the player can't produce or holds out for money, then the player's trash, and they'll tweet nasty things at them. I mean, that's just the nature of being a fan. But again, as you said, Puma, I mean, it just opens the door for more jokes, and it could have been avoidable. The Jets are an easy target. There's a reason why they haven't made the playoffs in an NFL record, 13 consecutive seasons. And that, they're fair game for this type of, this type of like verbal bashing. And this was so avoidable. And, for reasons that only they know, they didn't avoid it.
I'm here for it. My team sucks, so I'm gonna laugh at everybody else. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Oh man, Xavier Worthy rookie touchdown that happened a little bit ago in the game.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm playing against him in fantasy. Really? Oh.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Hey, listen to this. So I'm in 2 leagues. I'm playing against him in 1 league, and in the other league, I drafted him and traded him 2 days ago.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, I'm off to 2024. Off to a great start for me.
That's the only downside.
Because you guys know the one thing that everyone loves to hear is your fantasy football misery stories. Everyone.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
That's the conundrum you're in when you're in multiple leagues and you want to get really big into fantasy football. Unless you draft the same team everywhere, like you're gonna have to pick and choose which league you want to do better. I've run into that so many times.
Or worse, you do fantasy football and then you're also betting on the game. And let's say like I have Josh Allen on my fantasy team, but I'm taking a side that's going against the Buffalo Bills, and then here his happy ass going in the end zone. It's like, great, my fantasy team's doing awesome. Crap, I just lost this much money on the game. Damn it.
So one trick that I learned quickly when it came to betting on games is with the Pats is if you bet against them, it's like you pay to see them win. But then, if they lose, it's like shit.
That.
Well, I got paid for it, so it can't be that miserable. But I mean, the big thing is obviously I'm just going to be betting against them nonstop this year.
We're going to win a lot of money this year.
I picked them. I was my optimistic schedule breakdown that I did the other day is I had them possibly winning 3 games. That was my ceiling for them.
Ooh. Who do you have them beating?
Tennessee, because I think Tennessee's a joke organization. I'll say that. That's another one because I don't.
I think their defense is going to be pretty good this year.
I don't know. Snead's good, but I'm just thinking like I'm not sold on the QB. Calvin Ridley is kind of like you never know which Jekyll and Hyde you're going to get with him. They don't have Derrick Henry. They replaced him with Tony Pollard, which is not a workhorse. So I don't know. And I'm still bitter with what they did to Vrabel. I think they did him dirty. I don't like Tennessee anymore. Who else did I have them beating? Arizona, I think, was the number 2 because Arizona is another depends on Kyler Murray, really, at the end of the day, if he's going to be, running around like a overgrown toddler down there or if he's going to be hurt again. But I don't know. Arizona just doesn't do much for me, especially Marvin Harrison. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. able to play or is he still going with that whole lawsuit with Fanatics thing that's going on? I haven't
he can play. That's more of a marketing thing. He's eligible to play.
Okay, I wasn't sure because the whole jersey thing. I remember that being like a question mark for a little bit there. But
I don't think they can't. The NFL shop can't sell his jersey. But
okay, that was it. I just didn't. I didn't know if it had something to do with him being able to wear a jersey either. I was like, wait a minute, really? But
no, that's not it.
That would have been interesting.
Out there with duct tape over like the Fanatics logo.
Like they actually do. So I do remember the NFL used to find the guys if they wore stuff that was off brand. I remember Brady had to like tape over like Under Armour shit at one point because of like the Nike deal or whatever else. So I do remember that being a thing. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I had them. It was Tennessee, Arizona, and then I threw them a softball pitch there where I gave them a win in week 18, 19, whatever it is now against Buffalo because I was like, oh, Buffalo's probably either got it wrapped up already or they're going to rest all their players going into the playoffs. So they'll let the Patriots win one. I'm like, yeah, that's nice of them. So
that'll make Burge happy if they win that week 18 game.
Yeah, which will probably cost us draft pick. I was gonna say probably cost us the number 1 pick. We'll have to pick 2nd or 3rd, and he'll be like, "It was worth."
Maybe I'll be in attendance at that game.
Oh God! Well, in that case, I really hope they lose if you go there. So
The last game I went to, they got stomped by the Bills. All right, that was not a fun. That was a
Yeah.
Thursday night game a couple years ago. It was freezing cold at Gillette Stadium, and they got
I-
spanked. I actually made
I-
friends with some Bills fans in the parking lot. Believe it or not, I made friends with a Bills fan.
I haven't been to a game
Wow.
since Brady last played for the team. I'm smarter than that. I don't trust them anymore, so I don't want to waste my time going to see them get stomped like you did.
Oh man.
I gotta tell you, I like Bills fans. I know we talked about this, guys, like earlier when I was on, maybe a couple months ago. I know you hate them, and I understand why you hate them. I totally get it. That'd be like me liking a Cowboys fan since I grew up in Philadelphia. But just like walking through the parking lot, they are some devout people. I mean, and the weather up there. I mean, you guys are, the weather gets tough in the winter as well. But they're just like really loyal. I mean, I got a lot of respect for fans who show up even if the team isn't doing particularly well. Adverse conditions, weather-wise, and I think I would put the Bills, Steelers, and Packers fans among the three, like, I don't know, most impressive fans that I've come across in my career. Just really loyal, and I mean, like, obviously the Bills fans are a little feistier than Pittsburgh and Green Bay, but it's an interesting group. They're not like I would say they're fair weather fans. I mean, I've seen the Bills go through some tough times, and they're right there. They're right there supporting them, and it's a good group. But I don't begrudge you guys for not liking them, but just as an unbiased third party, I got a lot of respect for them actually.
It's.
I think I'm on an island on this
That
one.
guy,
I think
that
I'm
guy.
definitely on an island.
That dude.
I just feel bad for the Bills because, like I said, it's the acronym. Boy, I love losing Super Bowls. I mean, that's just
Wow.
The best.
I didn't come
one of
up-
the
I
best
didn't
30
come
for
up with
30
it.
shows right there.
I
One of the
It
best
is.
ones.
didn't
That
come up
one-
with it.
Four Falls of Buffalo, hands down, I think is one of the best 30 for 30s they've ever done.
Yeah, that's great.
Easily.
I mean, that's impressive in itself. But I mean, I don't have any conundrums with Bills guys. I mean, the Jets, they despise them because they always nicked us when we weren't expecting it, and like the whole Mangini thing. I'm still like sour about that clown where he was like, "Oh, I was a part of the Patriots. Let me do the Spygate thing." And it's just like, really, dude. Like, I mean, I get it, but also like, you're a clown. So I never liked Mangini. And the fact that we used to lose to like Chad Pennington and shit like that still drives me like crazy because he was just such a bad quarterback. But
Hey, I will not stand for Pennington slander, okay? He was the only good quarterback that Dolphins had for that cup of coffee since Marino, okay?
that's true.
Like,
That's true.
I survived Cleo Lemon, Dante Culpepper for a cup of coffee.
AJ Feely.
Jay
Oof.
Feely, AJ Feely, Jay Fielder, Pennington
Hey,
was the
Fiedler.
Rock of Gibraltar out of all of those guys. Okay, so I will not stand for the slander of Pennington, sir.
How does
He would
how
have been
does
a
it make
lot
you?
better if his arm didn't fall apart.
Well, how does
Yeah.
it make you feel that you missed out on the Drew Brees sweepstakes by passing on him for
don't.
Culpepper? Oh no,
No,
I'm
you
gonna
know
bring
what?
it
Talk
up.
about
I'm-
it.
I'm
you
gonna
know what?
bring it
The
up.
messed up thing is Nick Saban probably still would have found a way to screw that up.
Probably, yeah.
Like easily.
Isn't
Probably
it
still
isn't
would
it
have found a way
isn't
to
it
screw
fascinating to see some of the coaches that like come and go, whether it's pro or like college, and there's like the ginormous success they have in one facet or the other, and then some that have that kind of like equal like spread, but then others that are just like they tank. So like I remember, what was it, Chip Kelly was like, gonna be the guy. Like he was gonna revolutionize the Eagles, and they were just gonna set all kinds of records. And I don't think he was like the worst coach that the Eagles have ever had, but at the same time, like he was just so overhyped that I think he was such a letdown with like how those seasons went with him. But like, yeah, I always find that interesting where, like I said, like Harbaugh seems to be like that fine, like in between guy, right? Or he was really good in the NFL with the 49ers. He was phenomenal, obviously, with Michigan. He did really good things with was it Stanford before he went to the 49ers.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what he does again with the Chargers now that he's back. But like before Harbaugh, really the only coach that has sustained success in both college and pros was really Jimmy Johnson, because you think about other guys that have made that transition where you don't see that typical success. I mean, Christ, what was it? He's the offensive coordinator for the Commanders now. He was Arizona's head coach for a minute.
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury.
The dude had like a losing record at Texas Tech, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Here, you can come run our team for a bazillion dollars, and let's give you a stupid extension after you have one good season. And now it's like, really? Like, it's fascinating to see what owners or GMs or what have you will give up just to take a chance on guys that really don't deserve it. So that kind of the reason why I brought this up is so we were talking about the AFC East is like I kind of go back to the whole Gerard Mayo thing where Burge and I on the podcast we were on before they were asking our opinions on what we thought about Gerard Mayo, and I kind of was non-committal because it was like I don't want to judge him until I see what he brings to the table that's really going to be different from the Bill Belichick show that we've seen for the last 20 plus years. So far, I'm off to a start where I'm not super impressed. I mean, granted, it's the preseason is such a hard thing to judge with not showing anything or not having your regular players play. But like, do you guys? I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Where what was the point of really getting rid of Belichick in the first place if you're going to bring in a clone of somebody that's just going to do the exact same things with run the defense heavy and then kind of just shift the offense off to whoever? Because I don't know if I'm really impressed with Alex Van Pelt yet with the things that he's shown me with what they've done so far. But I don't know. What do you guys, especially in a coaching aspect, do you think that it's better to have a guy kind of show his hand earlier so you know what you're getting into? Like, I feel like with Miami specifically, Brandon, is like when Mike McDaniels got down there, like that was a culture like shock because they went from Brian Flores, who was just like, oh, like, everybody sucks and you were all terrible. And I thought Flores wasn't half bad, but like, obviously all the Tua stuff's coming out now about like how begrudgingly he was. But like, obviously when McDaniel showed up, they became the juggernaut like that you could put up 60, 70 points or whatever the hell it is. So I don't know. Do you got any thoughts on what I'm talking about?
I think you're spot on about Mayo being like Belichick 2.0 and like the clone aspect and kind of like the old school type of football mentality. To me, I think that move had to be made for one, the locker room, and two, to like appease the fan base, just because it was so bad. I mean, we can go back. We could do this for 3 hours if we want to do an autopsy on Bill Belichick and the general manager moves and all that stuff. But I mean, to keep it short and succinct, I think it was more so to try to, forgive the phrase, like have the locker room let their hair down and maybe kind of be themselves a little bit more. Like, I'm not saying that Mayo is going to be like Mike McDaniel, looking like Pablo Escobar's right-hand man with like the gold chain and everything. But I think it'll be maybe like a looser locker room, maybe like a little bit more free. And, maybe they'll play a little bit harder, because there were a couple of times last year where I looked and was like, are they like quitting live on TV on this coaching staff? Like, I think that was more the move to make to try to appease this fan base and to try to get some new blood and a new voice in that building.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just, the jury's out. And I don't know, Manish, I mean, we've talked before. I mean, Mayo is obviously a tremendous player for the time that he played with the Pats, where he was obviously the 10th overall pick and, had the accolades that he did playing linebacker. And a lot of people refer to him as a coach on the field and stuff. But where he's been around the organization for a while, that always helps to, I would say, an extent. But do you have any thoughts on whether Kraft is going to really like rely on him for like a future thing? Because that's like what he seems to be putting on the table right now, is like Mayo is like going to be the guy for the next like 10 plus years. Where do you think he's going to have that leash? Or is it going to be like, okay, if we have a couple more losing seasons like we've had recently, is that leash going to be pulled real quick and we're going to be in the coaching hunt again?
Well, he clearly has a great relationship with Robert Kraft. And I mean, that to me is absolutely essential. You had mentioned Mangini before, and for example, Mangini, he kept so many things from Woody Johnson, and Mangini actually had a really good record with the Jets. And he got fired, I believe he got fired after a 9-7 season. So the relationship between the owner and the head coach is absolutely essential. In terms of whether Mayo's going to have a decade-long leash, I mean, nobody can say for certain. And I don't think Gerard Mayo has any delusions of, being in there without any kind of pressure for that long. What I will say is there's no short leash. There's no quick hook. We know, the fans know, the organization knows, the ownership knows this is a rebuild. You're dealing with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback, so it's going to take time. Maybe that's 2 years, maybe that's 3 years, whatever it is. That amount of time, I have no doubt that Gerard Mayo will get from Robert Kraft. Once you get past that third, fourth year, then you really got to produce. I honestly, I think you got to produce after the third year. Even if you have a rookie quarterback, you got to show signs of improvement, much like you saw in Detroit, frankly, with Dan Campbell. They were awful the first year. They were a little bit better the second year. They were a little bit better the third year. So you need to see that progression. You don't necessarily need to make the playoffs in 2024 or even 2025, but you got to show some promise in order to get that third, fourth, fifth year. But, I don't think Robert Kraft wants to be in the business of what the Browns were, just a reactionary organization that changes head coaches every 2-3 years. I don't think that's how the Patriots are going to operate. I'm pretty sure that's not how Robert Kraft wants to operate. So Gerard Mayo's around for at least 3 years. I would say, if I were a betting man, I'd probably say at least 4 years. But then once you get to that 4-year mark, you really, have to show signs of improvement, even if it's incremental improvement. It doesn't have to be gargantuan jumps. If they win like 3 games, like you guys said this year, and they win maybe like 6 or 7 games in 2025, I think that's acceptable for Robert Kraft, and that'll give Mayo a third year. You just can't take a step back. If you level off after year 2 to year 3, in this particular situation, I think the owner will give Mayo a little bit longer of a leash, but no significant steps back. Obviously, you can't have like a Hugh Jackson situation in Cleveland where you're not winning any games for 2 years. That's an extreme situation, an example, of course, but that could get you fired after a couple of years, and rightfully so. But I think Mayo's going to have a comfortable 3-4 year run where he needs to show improvement, and if that happens, he can get a second contract, and then maybe buys you another 2 or 3 years. So, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. I think because the relationship is so rock solid, the Patriots, frankly, have a chance. I mean, that's something that fans don't like to talk about. Reporters, media don't really talk about and discuss very often. But that line of communication has to be solid for your organization to have any chance. Rex Ryan, for example, was incredible with Woody Johnson. He was open door policy, told him everything. And if the owner feels like he's involved in the process, even though he's not making roster decisions, he's not making lineup decisions, if he feels like the head coach is completely open and forthcoming with him, he will naturally give the coach a longer leash. And I think you even see that now with the Jets, with Robert Saleh and Woody Johnson, even though Woody Johnson wasn't around, for a couple of years because he was working as the ambassador in the Trump administration in the UK. If you invite, and this is a trick that all smart new coaches are fully aware of. If you ingratiate yourself with the owner, I'm talking on a day-to-day basis. I'm not talking about just during the interview process, but if you welcome him in every time you see him, if the lines of communication are really truly open, you buy yourself more time, and that relationship goes a long way to building a solid foundation for your organization. And then you get time. You get 2 or 3 drafts or 4 drafts to build a team. Where the owner is not, angry that the results aren't coming after year 1 or year 2, and you're more closed off, and you're not giving him your full thought process. There's a lot of ego involved on both ends, from ownership and head coaches. But I've come across so many head coaches in my life, coaches in general, who think they know more than the owner, and obviously they do. But if you kind of teach the owner what you're thinking and kind of go through the day-to-day thought process of how you're building your team, that can go a long way to not only improving your job security, but just increasing the chances that your organization will succeed, because the foundation between the 2 most important people in the building is rock solid.
Yeah.
I was just going to say real quick. I mean, that was a great point, Manish, about especially like Dan Campbell, because year 1 was a disaster, but it was a rebuild. Yeah. But then year 2, they start off to a slow start where the fans were calling for his head. And it got to the point where the Ford family had to come out and say, no, he's our guy. And they ended up taking those steps, and they made the playoffs, and they're going to be a playoff and Super Bowl contender this year. And, imagine if they got such a quick hook, you wouldn't have the progress that they've had at this point too. So that's spot on.
And I just want to say, you touched on the relationship, between Mayo and Kraft and how it's so rock solid because of the amount of time that Mayo's been around the Patriots and been involved with the organization. It's not something that I've actually really truly thought about when it comes to a lot of the head coaches, because I'm always like of the mindset that the NFL, these coaches, they don't get a long enough leash. The owners are so quick to just Mark Davis is a prime example of it, and it's why he's searching for help for ownership of his team, because he owes like 3 coaches or 4 coaches, something like that, a ton of money, because he signs them to these ridiculous contracts and moves on after a year or 2 years. And these coaches aren't afforded the opportunity to install their culture and their vision of what they want the team to build to. The rug's pulled out from under them too quick because, talk about instant gratification, with the Patriots winning games. It's the same for the owners. They don't see the results now. They're going to try to find somebody else that'll do it, and they'll just keep throwing money and keep throwing darts at it until something finally sticks. And it's not enough time for an administration to really build and install what they want to do. And I think that's a great point about Gerard Mayo and why, I maybe didn't think that the leash was going to be as long, but you bring up that point. I'm like, well, yeah, I think we are in this for a semi-long haul here with Gerard Mayo, and we'll see what happens, with the coaches around him and everything like that. Because I think those jobs, I think you'll see more of a revolving door potentially, depending on the performance of the team.
Right.
Well, I was going to say really quickly that if you really want to go above and beyond and get really close to the owner, you could be Jason Garrett and become the son-in-law to Jerry Jones. And I mean, that obviously worked out well enough for him that he stayed in Dallas as long as he did there. But no, I mean, well, that's a whole nother discussion to be had. But no, I think the big thing too, Burge, is that you got to think about the owners obviously look at it from a very, very different perspective than we do as the fans as well, because they want to have that instant gratification, but at the same time, you got to realize it's a business decision for those guys as well. And granted, they throw stupid money at people that they shouldn't, but it's also I look at it too as Robert. You can't sit there and tell me that Robert Kraft didn't make a business decision by letting Belichick go the way he did this year, because you could start to tell the fan base was turning against the team with the decline they've had the last 3 seasons. I mean, we're both on record as being we didn't want to see Belichick go. We still think he has a lot of coaching left in the tank, but at the same time, if the owner is losing money because people don't want to go to the games, you have to make a change regardless of what you think, the fans think, or whatever. They're going to pull the trigger on what's financially responsible for them, and then how that drives the organization going forward. At the end of the day, I guarantee you half the owners could give 2 shits if they give a new contract to a new coach every year, as long as they pump out the wins and the fans are happy and the seats are filled at the stadium and they're making hand over fist of the money that they make. They don't care who's really running the show as long as it's making them money. And that's a big thing you got to think about too at the end of the day. So that's why it's very interesting with the whole Mayo, pick for me, because like we talked about, Mayo's not the sexy pick. He's been around the organization, and he was handpicked by Kraft, and they have that relationship that they do. But I would have, as a fan, I would have been very excited for them to be in on Jim Harbaugh coming, just Jim or John, whichever one is in Chargers now. I would have been excited as a fan, being okay, I know what this guy brings to the table because he's been in the NFL before. He just came off a national championship at Michigan. He's got the accolades already. I'm looking into the void of what the hell are we getting into with Mayo, where it's okay, are we getting Belichick 2.0? Or are we getting something brand new? It's just, that's where we look at it as fans from such a different point as the ownership does.
That's a valid point. And, the money obviously plays the biggest part, but the performance of the team plays the biggest part for the owner. I don't know. I'm looking at it more from a football perspective, and obviously as a fan perspective, what I'm saying, you got to let the guy do what he's going to do. And the plan should be relatively clear when the coach is in the interview process, right? This is my plan. This is how I want to build it. It's going to take some time. This is what I plan to do. And the owner signs off on it. Don't pull the rug out from underneath it. You know what I mean? Let it play out.
I don't disagree with that, but you also have to look at like very specific circumstances too, between what power they give to the coach, whether they also give them GM responsibilities as well. I mean, that's a big thing. Is like when they hired Josh McDaniels as his first tenure with Denver. I mean, do you think anybody thought that he was immediately going to trade away Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall, arguably their two best offensive players, like from the previous years, and then ride with Tim freaking Tebow and
You wanted Matt Castle.
But that's what I'm saying though, is like, do you think McDaniels was like, hey, hire me, give me a shit ton of money, and the first thing I'm gonna do is get rid of Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler? Sound good? Great. Let's ride this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's obviously give and take with certain aspects of that, but then at the same time, you got to look at how the dominoes fall, right? It depends on injuries, it depends on where you end up in the draft. A lot of times too, like, GMs and coaches might not be on the same page. Like, we all remember Mike Vrabel down in Tennessee when they traded away AJ Brown during that draft, where he literally was like dumbfounded on TV, like looking at his GM, like, did you just fucking do that? Like, what are you doing? And like, I remember just sitting there being like, oh no. I was like, what is that stupid monkey like meme that is like, oh no. Like, just like like the rug was pulled out from underneath him. And it's really unfortunate that like that's a big part of it too, is like I don't disagree with you in the slightest that coaches deserve longer leashes or longer time to put in their plan or whatever. But at the same time, there's so many intangibles that go into different aspects of how they get screwed over, or like I said, injuries. Like the whole thing, like a prime example, Robert Saleh, right? Like, does anybody on here think he's like the worst coach ever? No. Like, he's not a terrible coach. I don't think he's a terrible coach. Was last year his fault that Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles in the first 4 plays of the season? Absolutely not. But was he immediately put on the hot seat throughout the season because the minute Rodgers went down, the Jets season was de facto over? Like, yeah, he was put on the hot seat. Was it deserved? No, probably not. But at the same time, he's also been there for a couple of years without Aaron Rodgers, and he hasn't had success either. So there's so many different factors that go into it. That's why I hesitate to be like, okay, well, on one hand, I totally agree with you, but on the other hand, I have to be like, well, some coaches don't deserve that, like the long pull. I mean, anybody deserves longer than what was it, Frank Reich got down in Carolina, though. Holy crap. What did he get pulled after like 7 games or something?
Nathaniel Hackett too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Hackett couldn't hack it.
He shouldn't have been a coach in the first place.
Like Frank Reich, to me, granted, take this with a grain of salt because I'm a Frank Reich guy, but you know, he's had kind of a rough go of it as a head coach when he goes to Indianapolis as like the second choice after the McDaniels fiasco. He doesn't even get Andrew Luck for a full year. He's got to do the Jacoby Brissett experience. Gets run out of there by Jim Irsay, who wanted to see what was it, Ellinger at quarterback, and then Dave Tepper doing his best impersonation of Dan Snyder minus the off the field issues and trying to Bigfoot him in the draft. And you know, Frank Reich, to me, spot on example of bad run and not getting enough leash.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's unfortunate because it goes back to what we talked about way earlier with, like I said, about Justin Herbert, right? Where it's like, would he have more success somewhere else? Would he have less success somewhere else? It all depends on the position that you're put in. And I think that's a lot of times with coaches in the league too. And that's why a lot of times you see coordinators have the success that they do because they're not given, I think, that full responsibility of the coaching job, where you see guys kill it as coordinators. And then the minute they take over a head coaching position, they can't hack it because it's like, they were so good just worrying about defense only. And now it's like, you got to throw the offense on top of that too. And then it's like, they're, you know, bringing in guys to do the job that they wanted to do in the first place. And I mean, we go back to what was it? We were talking about people calling plays. I mean, Andy Reid, I'm sure he's probably calling the plays for Kansas City right now because he couldn't get an offensive coordinator to agree with him for like the first couple of years he was there with that. So I don't know. Coaching is just such a enigma to me in the NFL because there's so many different things that like factor into like who's successful, who has long-term success. And it's such a revolving door where I remember I wanted to be a coach in the NFL for so long, and then it was just like I was like job security. Yeah, I'm not going in that route because that's not going to last long for me. So,
Yep.
ooh, Travis Kelce with a big drop. Ooh, I like that. How many times they keep showing Taylor Swift? I keep looking over and I'm like,
Showing Taylor Swift.
yeah, I keep showing her. She's all excited. I'm like, come on, are we really doing this?
Oh, that should have been. Oh, that should have been intercepted. Did you guys see that fourth down play? Did you guys catch the fourth down play?
I did.
I saw your reaction because my TV's a little behind, so I saw your reaction, and then I saw the fourth down play where he got tackled like out in the flat. It was a really bad play.
No, it was a good play. Nelson Aguilar was just in no man's land. He completely missed his block. He ran right by the defensive back. It was a good play. They probably would have had it if he had just blocked McDuffie.
Oh, I missed that. Then I looked up as he was getting tackled, and I was like, "Wow, that was horrible."
But Aguilar looked like he was running out to go out on a route.
Well, we all know you and I know better than a lot of people what Nelson Aguilar brings to the table. Okay, so I don't want to hear
Aguilar.
I got a trivia question for you. Who drafted? What coach drafted Nelson Aguilar? We mentioned him earlier in the podcast.
Kelly, right?
Chip Kelly, yeah.
Wow.
He was the 17th. Oh, he's a first round pick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
He's just
he's been okay actually since he left the Eagles.
Every time I hear his name, I just think of the guy that was being interviewed.
Yeah, Billy,
like Aguilar.
Right. he had like Butterfingers when he was in Philly. Wasn't a fan favorite.
No, it was in Philly, and then he went to Oakland. They were still Oakland at the time, and I think he had a really good season.
Yeah, I think
contract here. Then he signed with you guys.
That's why he got the contract he did from the Patriots because he actually tore it up and with the Raiders for the 1 year.
My only memory of him with the Patriots was they were playing the Ravens and they were driving to take the lead, and he made a beautiful catch. It was running for, I think he was going to score a touchdown, and he ended up getting tackled from behind. He fumbled the ball and game over. Ravens recover it, game over. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I actually was walking to Raymond James Stadium to go see the Bucks and the Packers play when that happened. I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And then I watched Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, and I was kind of better.
Nice.
Oh, man. What do you say? Guys, got anything else you want to hit on?
Yeah.
Well, Hogan, what you said earlier, I mean, just I don't want to belabor the point about the coaches, but it's clear that Kraft feels comfortable with Mayo, and you had mentioned Jim Harbaugh, wanting to maybe go after him. The problem with Jim Harbaugh, or maybe not a problem, but the big thing that you need to concern yourself with is if you're an owner is how much power does he want? I mean, does he want to come in and run the entire show? It's kind of maybe. I mean, I don't know definitively, but maybe that was one of the issues that Bill Belichick ran into when he was interviewing in Atlanta, because Rich McKay is one of the executives there, has been there with Arthur Blank, for the entirety of his ownership, and he didn't want to. I don't think he'd want someone to come in to displace his position in the organization. So comfort level matters. I think the Chargers, for example, got a little bit lucky, or they're fortunate in that their new general manager Ortiz came from Baltimore, so John Harbaugh knows Ortiz really well, and I'm sure John, really vouched for Ortiz when he talked to his brother before his brother took the job. But when you get a guy who's so coveted like that, you got to worry about, does he want to restructure the organization? How much power does he want? In Philadelphia's case with Chip Kelly, for example, it was he moved Howie Roseman out of that GM spot. There's a well-known story in Philly that Howie Roseman's office got relocated to the other side of the building. They were drawing the comparison. I don't know if you guys saw Office Space with the guy, the stapler in the basement.
Milton. Yeah.
Milton. And he was Howie Roseman was really marginalized, really pushed out of his responsibilities because Chip Kelly took over, and Kelly had an abrasive relationship with so many people in that organization. Did not have a good relationship with Jeffrey Lurie, and that goes back to what we said earlier about having that rock solid relationship between head coach and ownership, and that's why he wore out his welcome to Philadelphia. So, while fans might like the sexier name, like a Jim Harbaugh, I think that the boring guy, the guy who's been in house, the guy who the owner is comfortable with, and who has got his trust, is probably, I don't want to say it's the better way to go, but it's clearly not a bad option.
Yeah, it just for me personally, I was curious to see how everything was going to end up, because where Belichick obviously had the control that he did for as long as he did, and then there were so many question marks where immediately after Belichick, was pushed out the door, and then Mayo was introduced. I think it was like 3 days later that all of a sudden Mayo was the coach. All the questions started coming up, being like, okay, is Mayo going to be the GM as well as the coach? Because every word out of Mayo's mouth was like player development, player development, player development. And it was like, yeah, that's great. You want player development, but like, are you going to be the guy picking the players to develop, or are you just going to be handed whatever you're handed and that's it? So it's curious that they went the route that they did with Elliot Wolf and everything. So I'm interested to see how it shakes out. I mean, like I said, it's just question marks at this point, but we can see what happens. So
yeah, I mean, look, the head coach has to be involved in the players, in picking the players. I mean,
yeah,
I think if there's a tie, it goes to general manager. A lot of general managers work this way. They will work hand in hand with players. I mean, with coaches. Coaches will give specific traits about what they're looking for and what positions they prioritize, and within each position, what trait are they looking for, and then the general manager will get a player that fits those traits. Some organizations are a little bit more detailed, where the head coach will specifically say, I want player A or B, but those guys aren't on the road scouting during the season. They're preparing for the next opponent. So they're not, they come so late along in the process. After the season starts, that's when they start getting involved in looking at college tape. Whereas the scouts and general manager, assistant general manager, they've been spending all year on the road looking for players. So I think the organizations, at least from my experience with the GMs and the head coaches that I've known through the years, the organizations that work the best are the GM looks at the roster in tandem with the head coach. The head coach says, my top priorities are linebacker, receiver, and cornerback. This is the type of linebacker I want. These are the 5 or 6 traits that I want. The linebacker is a priority, and I want a linebacker like this. And then the general manager in the front office gets players to fit those parameters. It's unusual that a head coach would say, I want these 7 players, because they admittedly don't really know what these players are all about, other than what they may catch on TV on a Saturday night.
True. I was going to say something and now I lost my train of thought. That sounds about typical. I was just watching Lamar Jackson run for his little scamper there to right up the middle. Like I said, my TV's a little probably delayed compared to you guys, but I just really, really hope Ravens pull this off, because I don't want to deal with the Chiefs winning anymore. But I think at this point, guys, we are going to wrap it up around here. I know it's getting a little late for me. Unfortunately, I have to work tomorrow. As much as I'd love to sit and watch football till 2:00 in the morning, which it seems this game's going to go to at this point. We're going to wrap this sucker up, but we really quickly just want to say thank you to both of you, both Brandon and Manish, for joining us, and for you guys out there watching. If you're still watching, or if you watched previously, or you watch in the future, what have you, we appreciate you. But again, both of you, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you had a blast with us and talking smack like always.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Good talk, guys.
Thanks for having me on.
Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah,
right.
well, now we're officially back in the swing of things with the season officially kicked off tonight. You guys can keep an eye out for more podcasts coming from us. Burge and I obviously have Between the Tackles, which is our main steady, and then also with the new network that we joined, being Fans First Sports Network, I have a new podcast as well, Foxborough Frenzy, which is Patriots exclusive, where I'm going to try and stay as positive as I can. It's not working out too well. I mean, I'm trying my best, but we'll see how week 1 goes against Cincinnati this weekend. But again, just want to thank both of you guys. Burge, as always, you are the man, even though you're an idiot, but I love you. I got to throw it out there. I got to do it that way. So it's been a blast. We'll talk to you guys soon.
See ya. Peace.